Welcome to Whispered Words and Chapter of Love, your shortcut to the world of books. In just a few minutes, we'll take you on a journey through the pages of your favorite stories. Today I am covering Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so you never miss a book summary. Let's dive in. In chapters 1 to 3 of Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen sets the stage by introducing the Bennet family, who reside at Longbourn, a modest estate in the English countryside. The family consists of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and their 5 daughters, Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. The primary concern of Mrs. Bennet is to secure advantageous marriages for her daughters, as the family estate is entailed to a male heir, meaning that the Bennet daughters stand to lose their home and livelihood if they do not marry well. The plot begins to unfold with the arrival of Mr. Bingley, a wealthy and eligible bachelor, in the neighborhood. Mrs. Bennet is eager to match him with one of her daughters, seeing this as an opportunity for a prosperous union. Mr. Bingley is immediately taken by Jane Bennet's beauty and amiable nature. However, it becomes clear that he is not the sole decision-maker in his social circle. Additionally, Mr. Bingley brings along his close friend, Mr. Darcy, a wealthy and reserved gentleman. Mr. Darcy's initial aloofness and perceived arrogance create an air of mystery around him. This introduction sets the stage for the evolving relationships and social dynamics that will be explored in the subsequent chapters. The opening chapters lay the foundation for the novel's exploration of societal expectations, class distinctions, and the complexities of romantic relationships. The reader begins to witness the interplay between characters and the unfolding drama that will shape the course of the story. In chapters 4 to 6, Mr. Bingley's arrival in the neighborhood becomes a significant event. He is a wealthy and amiable bachelor, and his wealth and social standing make him an attractive match for the Bennet sisters. Mr. Bingley decides to host a ball, which is a much-anticipated social occasion. At the ball, we see the introduction of the Bennet sisters to the local society. It's an opportunity for the young ladies to display their charms and perhaps attract potential suitors. The social dynamics and the expectations of the time play a crucial role in shaping the events at the ball. However, the focus of attention shifts when Mr. Darcy, Mr. Bingley's friend, enters the scene. Mr. Darcy is portrayed as wealthy, handsome, and reserved. His aloofness and apparent arrogance become evident at the ball. He does not readily engage with the local society, and his reserved demeanor creates an initial impression of pride and condescension. One notable incident is when Mr. Darcy declines to dance with Elizabeth Bennet, citing her inferiority in social standing. This moment contributes to the growing tension between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, setting the stage for the development of their complex relationship throughout the novel. The ball scene in these chapters serves as a crucial turning point in the narrative, establishing the social dynamics and the initial impressions of the characters. It also lays the foundation for the evolving relationships and conflicts that will unfold as the story progresses. In chapters 7 to 9 the narrative takes an interesting turn as Elizabeth Bennet attends the Meryton Ball. At this social event, tensions between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy begin to escalate. Elizabeth overhears a conversation between Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley in which Mr. Darcy expresses disdainful remarks about her, specifically criticizing her appearance and social standing. This overheard conversation becomes a pivotal moment in the story, contributing to Elizabeth's initial prejudice against Mr. Darcy. The negative impression created by this eavesdropped conversation sets the tone for Elizabeth's interactions with Mr. Darcy in the subsequent chapters. It sparks a sense of resentment and defiance in Elizabeth, shaping her perception of Mr. Darcy as arrogant and judgmental. This incident becomes a significant catalyst for the evolving dynamics between the two characters throughout the novel. Meanwhile, Mr. Bingley's continued interest in Jane Bennet adds another layer of complexity to the narrative. Despite Mr. Darcy's reservations about Jane's social status, Mr. Bingley remains drawn to her. This subplot highlights the contrast between Mr. Bingley's amiable and open-minded nature and Mr. Darcy's more reserved and judgmental demeanor. Overall, chapters 7 to 9 contribute to the development of the central conflicts in Pride and Prejudice, setting the stage for the unfolding romantic and social complexities that shape the rest of the novel. In chapters 10 to 13, the story deepens as the Bennet sisters visit Meryton. Mr. Wickham's arrival introduces a new and intriguing element to the plot. He is a charismatic and charming officer, and his presence immediately captures the attention of the local society, including the Bennet sisters. Elizabeth Bennet, in particular, is drawn to Mr. Wickham, and they strike up a friendship. Through their interactions, Elizabeth learns more about Mr. Darcy's perceived arrogance. Mr. Wickham shares his side of the story, presenting himself as a victim of Mr. Darcy's unfair treatment. According to Mr. Wickham, Mr. Darcy has wronged him, causing Elizabeth to further question Mr. Darcy's character. This phase in the novel intensifies the contrast between Mr. Darcy and Mr. Wickham. Mr. Darcy, initially portrayed as proud and aloof, now faces a challenge to his reputation. The presence of Mr. Wickham introduces a layer of mystery and intrigue, making the reader question the true nature of the characters and the validity of the information presented. The interactions in Meryton also serve to deepen the romantic tension between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. The unfolding events contribute to Elizabeth's growing prejudice against Mr. Darcy while simultaneously building sympathy for Mr. Wickham. Chapters 10 to 13, therefore, play a crucial role in advancing the plot, revealing more about the characters' personalities, and laying the groundwork for the complexities and misunderstandings that will continue to unfold in Pride and Prejudice. In chapters 14 to 17, Mr. Collins, a clergyman and the Bennet family's heir, arrives at Longbourn with the intention of marrying one of the Bennet sisters. His arrival is met with a mixture of amusement and exasperation from the Bennet family, particularly Mrs. Bennet, who is eager to see her daughters married. Mr. Collins is a pompous and obsequious character, and his proposal to Elizabeth Bennet is a memorable scene. In chapter 15, Mr. Collins approaches Elizabeth with the solemn intent of proposing marriage. However, his proposal is more of a business arrangement, as he believes it is his duty to marry one of the Bennet sisters to set things right in terms of inheritance. Elizabeth, true to her spirited and independent nature, firmly rejects Mr. Collins. This refusal is a pivotal moment in the novel, highlighting Elizabeth's refusal to marry for convenience or social expectations. It also sets the stage for the exploration of the theme of marriage and the importance of personal compatibility. During this time, Mr. Darcy's interest in Elizabeth becomes more apparent. Although he is initially reserved and seems proud, there are subtle signs that he is drawn to Elizabeth's intelligence and wit. This sets the groundwork for the complex and evolving relationship between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, a central focus of the novel. End chapters 18 to 20, several significant events unfold. Mr. Collins, the Bennet family's distant cousin, and heir to their estate, arrives at Longbourn to select one of the Bennet sisters as his wife. He is a rather obsequious and pompous clergyman, and his proposal to Elizabeth Bennet is a comically awkward and insincere affair. During Mr. Collins' proposal, he lists his reasons for marriage, emphasizing the practical advantages of such a union, particularly in terms of securing his own happiness. However, Elizabeth, known for her intelligence and independent spirit, firmly rejects Mr. Collins. She is not willing to enter into a marriage devoid of genuine affection and based solely on social and economic considerations. Meanwhile, in the same timeframe, the romantic plot involving Jane Bennet and Mr. Bingley takes a turn. Mr. Bingley, who had shown considerable interest in Jane, abruptly leaves Netherfield, his estate near the Bennet family home. This sudden departure causes great distress to Jane, as well as confusion among the Bennet family. Jane had hoped for a deeper connection with Mr. Bingley, and his unexpected exit leaves her heartbroken and the family speculating about the reasons behind his departure. The simultaneous occurrences of Mr. Collins' unsuccessful proposal and Mr. Bingley's departure contribute to the unfolding drama in the novel. These events serve to highlight the different attitudes towards marriage and social expectations, as well as setting the stage for further developments in the relationships among the characters. In chapters 24 to 26, the plot takes a significant turn. Lydia Bennet, the youngest Bennet sister, is sent to Brighton, a coastal town known for its military presence. Lydia, full of youthful exuberance, becomes infatuated with the officers stationed there and engages in flirtatious behavior. Meanwhile, back in Hertfordshire, Mr. Darcy, who has been a mysterious and somewhat enigmatic figure, unexpectedly visits Elizabeth Bennet. This visit is a crucial moment in the story. Mr. Darcy, in a burst of emotion, confesses his feelings for Elizabeth and shocks her by proposing marriage. During his proposal, Mr. Darcy expresses his deep admiration for Elizabeth but also emphasizes the social and economic differences between them. He mentions his struggle against his growing affection for her, despite her lower social standing. This revelation is a pivotal moment as it gives readers insight into Mr. Darcy's character and internal conflict. However, Elizabeth's response is a resolute refusal. She rebukes Mr. Darcy, citing his role in separating Jane and Mr. Bingley, as well as his mistreatment of Mr. Wickham. Elizabeth's refusal is a testament to her strong principles and sense of justice. It also sets the stage for further developments in their relationship, as Mr. Darcy leaves, and both characters are left to grapple with their emotions and the consequences of this unexpected encounter. This chapter is crucial in the development of the central romance in Pride and Prejudice, as it marks a turning point in Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy's relationship and sets the stage for their eventual reconciliation. In chapters 27 to 30 of Pride and Prejudice, the plot takes an interesting turn as Jane Bennet, the eldest Bennet's sister, receives a letter from Caroline Bingley, the sister of Mr. Bingley. The letter discloses Mr. Darcy's involvement in separating Jane from Mr. Bingley. Caroline, who harbors romantic aspirations for Mr. Darcy herself, has been manipulating the situation to keep Mr. Bingley away from Jane. Caroline's letter reveals the extent of Mr. Darcy's interference in Jane's relationship with Mr. Bingley. It becomes apparent that Mr. Darcy, influenced by his own reservations and class prejudices, has actively worked to keep Jane and Mr. Bingley apart. This revelation adds a layer of complexity to the romantic entanglements in the story and sheds light on the social dynamics and machinations among the upper class. In response to these developments, Jane travels to London with her aunt and uncle, the Gardiners. This journey to the city allows for further exploration of the social milieu outside the Bennet family's rural surroundings. It also sets the stage for encounters with various characters, including Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy, in the urban setting of London. The events that unfold during this period in the novel contribute significantly to the evolving relationships and the eventual resolution of the story. Overall, chapters 27 to 30 mark a pivotal moment in Pride and Prejudice as the characters' motivations and actions come to light, revealing the complexities of love, class, and societal expectations in the world Jane Austen has created. In chapters 31 to 34 of Pride and Prejudice, Jane and Elizabeth Bennet find themselves in London, where unexpected meetings with Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley occur, bringing about significant developments in the plot. Here's a more detailed explanation. In these chapters, Jane and Elizabeth, accompanied by their aunt and uncle, the Gardiners, visit the bustling city of London. As fate would have it, they run into Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy. The reunion with Mr. Bingley is a joyful one, especially for Jane, as it revives the romantic connection that had seemed lost when he abruptly left Netherfield earlier in the novel. However, Mr. Darcy's presence creates a more complex atmosphere. During their time in London, Mr. Darcy's behavior becomes increasingly amiable and considerate, in stark contrast to his earlier reserved and seemingly arrogant demeanor. This change in his conduct raises questions and piques Elizabeth's curiosity. As they interact, further revelations about Mr. Wickham, a key character with a history of animosity with Mr. Darcy, come to light. Elizabeth learns more about Mr. Wickham's past and discovers that his charming exterior hides a less honorable character. Mr. Darcy provides details that cast Wickham in a different light, challenging Elizabeth's previous opinions and forcing her to reconsider her judgments. This revelation about Wickham's character adds a layer of complexity to the relationships in the novel, particularly in relation to Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. The encounter in London sets the stage for the evolving dynamics between Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy, and Mr. Wickham. It also contributes to the gradual transformation of Mr. Darcy's image in Elizabeth's eyes. These chapters mark a turning point in the narrative, as misunderstandings are clarified, and the characters are compelled to re-evaluate their prejudices and preconceptions. The revelations in London significantly influence the later events in the story, leading to the resolution of various plotlines and the ultimate romantic resolution in the novel. In chapters 35 to 37 of Pride and Prejudice, the focus shifts to the aftermath of Lydia's elopement with Mr. Wickham. Elizabeth returns home and finds her family in a state of distress upon learning of Lydia's scandalous behavior. Elizabeth's visit to the newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Collins, provides a glimpse into the awkward and somewhat ridiculous dynamics of their married life. Mrs. Collins, formerly Charlotte Lucas, seems to be adapting to her new role as the wife of the obsequious Mr. Collins. The visit highlights the contrast between Elizabeth's independent and witty nature and the more subservient role embraced by Mrs. Collins. However, the mood quickly darkens with the revelation of Lydia's elopement. The news of her running away with Mr. Wickham shocks and shames the Bennet family. Lydia's actions threaten the reputation of the entire family, as elopement without marriage was a serious scandal in the social context of the time. The elopement underscores the consequences of Lydia's flirtatious and impulsive behavior, and it becomes apparent that the family's lack of discipline and proper supervision has contributed to this unfortunate turn of events. The scandal puts a strain on the Bennet family's social standing and creates a sense of urgency to rectify the situation. This part of the story sets the stage for Mr. Darcy's intervention in later chapters, as he plays a pivotal role in resolving Lydia's situation and preventing further damage to the Bennet family's reputation. It also adds a layer of complexity to Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy's relationship, as his actions reveal a more compassionate and honorable side of his character. In chapters 38 to 41, the plot takes a dramatic turn. Lydia Bennet, the youngest Bennet sister, elopes with Mr. Wickham, creating a scandal that could ruin the family's reputation. The elopement is discovered, and the family is in distress. Mr. Darcy, who has developed strong feelings for Elizabeth Bennet, takes it upon himself to locate and intervene in Lydia's situation. He uses his resources and influence to track down Lydia and Mr. Wickham, eventually persuading them to marry. This action is significant because it not only saves Lydia's reputation but also prevents a major scandal that could have had lasting consequences for the Bennet family. However, as the situation unfolds, secrets about Mr. Wickham's character come to light. It becomes apparent that Mr. Wickham is not the honorable man he appeared to be. Details about his past actions and behavior emerge, revealing a darker side to his character. This revelation adds complexity to the story and contributes to the reader's understanding of the characters and their motivations. Meanwhile, in the midst of these events, Mr. Bingley, who had previously left Netherfield abruptly, returns to propose to Jane Bennet. This development brings a more positive and hopeful note to the story, as it signals the resolution of the romantic tension between Jane and Mr. Bingley. The contrast between the two proposals, Mr. Darcy's intervention to save Lydia and Mr. Bingley's proposal to Jane, highlights the different ways in which love and relationships are portrayed in the novel. Overall, these chapters play a crucial role in the unfolding of the narrative, revealing the complexity of the characters' relationships and showcasing both the strengths and weaknesses of key figures like Mr. Darcy and Mr. Wickham. In chapters 42 to 45, a pivotal moment occurs in the relationship between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. After the tumultuous events surrounding Lydia's elopement with Mr. Wickham, Elizabeth returns home to Longbourn. The atmosphere is heavy with the disgrace Lydia has brought upon the family, and Elizabeth is grappling with her own feelings. Unexpectedly, Mr. Darcy arrives at Longbourn. His sudden appearance takes Elizabeth by surprise, and it becomes apparent that he is deeply affected by the events that transpired. In a turn of events that is both surprising and emotional, Mr. Darcy expresses his continued love for Elizabeth and proposes to her once again. This proposal is a significant departure from his first one at the Hunsford parsonage. In this second proposal, Mr. Darcy is more humble, sincere, and open about his feelings. He acknowledges and apologizes for his previous mistakes, particularly in influencing Mr. Bingley against Jane and in separating Jane and Mr. Bingley. Mr. Darcy also addresses the misunderstandings about Mr. Wickham, providing Elizabeth with a clearer picture of his character. Elizabeth, despite her initial shock and reservations, realizes the depth of Mr. Darcy's feelings and the sincerity of his intentions. After some reflection, she decides to accept his proposal. This marks a turning point in the novel, as Elizabeth's prejudices against Mr. Darcy are gradually replaced by a growing understanding of his true character. The engagement of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy sets the stage for the resolution of the novel's central conflict and the eventual happiness of the two main characters. In the final chapters of Pride and Prejudice, the narrative focuses on the preparations for the double wedding of Jane Bennet and Charles Bingley, and Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. The atmosphere is one of joy and anticipation, as the couples prepare to embark on their new lives together. Mr. Darcy arrives at the parsonage to propose to Elizabeth once again. This time, his proposal is heartfelt, sincere, and free from the pride and prejudice that characterized his earlier attempts. Elizabeth, having realized her own feelings for Mr. Darcy and having overcome her own prejudices, accepts his proposal. The scene is emotionally charged and marks a turning point in their relationship. While the focus is primarily on Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, the novel also delves into the preparations for Jane and Bingley's wedding. The happiness of the eldest Bennet's sister is contrasted with the tumultuous journey of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, providing a well-rounded view of the unfolding events. The climax of the novel occurs with the double wedding of Jane and Bingley alongside Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. The ceremony is a culmination of the characters' growth, the resolution of misunderstandings, and the triumph of love over societal expectations. The double wedding serves as a symbolic representation of the alignment of the couples, who have overcome various obstacles to find happiness. The concluding chapters offer reflections on the nature of love and character. Jane Austen uses this opportunity to comment on the importance of self-awareness, personal growth, and the ability to overcome one's shortcomings in the pursuit of love and happiness. The characters, especially Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, have evolved throughout the novel, and their union is a testament to the transformative power of love. In these final chapters, Jane Austen not only resolves the romantic plotlines but also provides insightful commentary on societal norms, personal growth, and the complexities of human relationships. The novel concludes with a sense of closure and the promise of a happily ever after for the characters who have navigated the challenges of pride, prejudice, and societal expectations. Thanks for joining us on this literary journey today. If you enjoyed this book summary, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with fellow book lovers. For more quick dives into the world of literature, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell, so you never miss another chapter. Also, in the video description below, you'll find a link where you can listen to the full book for free. So, if you're eager to explore the entire story, be sure to check that out. Until next time, happy reading!